Hey everyone, welcome to Art Studio 320. I'm Melanie and I recreate furniture to sell to happy customers. This week's project is the bottom of a hutch and I'm going to turn it into a Drybar. Stick around. I tried to take this off, but it won't come off because it's screwed in, but I can't see the screws. After consulting with Phil, the conclusion is that the screws are underneath, so I have to take the top off to get to the screws that are screwed into this. Honestly, I wasn't thrilled at all about having to take the top off. And as it turns out, I really couldn't get all of the screws out. I even had Phil try, and there was one screw that wouldn't come out. So you see, I'm rotating the top back and forth so I can get all the screws that I needed to get out to get that little piece off the top. And then of course I had to put the screws back in. These two decorative pieces weren't easy to take out either. They had really long staples. The majority of this piece was going to be scuff sanded and the top was what I was going to sand down to the raw wood. And as hard as I tried to sand the top, it just was taking forever, so I gave in and decided to strip it. I want to make restoration bronze. I only have a little left. I have chocolate brown by Fusion, and I have some tobacco brown, and I have bayberry by Fusion. So tobacco brown is 1 by Melange. So I want to, they all have top coat in them, so I want to mix them together. This is my test area. This little spot right here is the actual Melange Restoration Bronze. And that's what I came up with. So they're pretty close. It was about a 1-to-1 ratio. I'm gonna do maybe not that much brown. Okay, so I want to go to about where that, almost to the end of the sticker. Right there. And then some melange. May need to add a little bit more tobacco brown, we'll see. I need a better stick. This is the first time I'm mixing it together. I just did a little test here with my finger. And I'm kind of guessing at the ratio, but got it right here. This is from the Restoration Bronze by Melange. And this is what I came up with. Pretty good. Pretty good. I'm going to go with that. Before I paint, I always use a tack cloth to get off all of the dust. It works better than anything else. I've thought a lot about changing strippers because as much as I like Citrus Strip because it isn't as toxic as some of the others, it really does take a lot longer. Now the wire brush I was using is really something that you use on oak. Number one, oak is a tough wood and can take the wire brush going with the grain, but it has deep grain, so the stain gets into that grain. So if you really want to get all of it out, you really want to use that brush. I didn't care that I got all of it out, but I wanted to get most of it out. Because I was only scuff sanding the front, I thought maybe I could do a whitewash on the trim on the top and the bottom. So that's what I'm doing right now. And you just water down your paint, and really it's up to you how watery you want it to be. But in the end, I really didn't like the results on this particular piece, so I went ahead and painted it. I did, however, keep the wash that I wanted to do on the trim on the door that I'm working on right now, and then this big door that was on the bottom. I thought it would be nice to have this color, just a hint of the color on these two pieces on the front so that the wood grain would still show through. When you're doing a wash like this, there's really no specific way to do it. It's really kind of up to you. The idea here is to put the color down in a thin layer and then wipe it back. So really, you can do that any way you want, and you can make the wash as thin as you want or as concentrated as you want. It's really kind of a personal choice. And I just suggest practicing with it. You can always wipe it off, sand it back if you really don't like it. So don't be afraid to try it. This is how I do it, and this works really well for me, but even I change it up each time because, quite frankly, I forget. I forget how I did it the time before because it's really not that important. These weird spaces got left behind because of the hinges, and I thought the best thing to do would be to fill the hole with wood filler. But because of all the decorative work on this trim, it was going to be very difficult to get that same look. So I decided to just cover it with a different kind of trim. And really that turned out to be a better choice because this would have made me crazy because I would have had to do it 4 different times. My first idea was to do a wash on the trim on the sides like I had on the two doors on the front. The difference was I didn't sand back the trim on the sides like I did on the front. And I thought that it was going to look okay, but it looked way too different than it did on the front, and perhaps on a different piece it would have looked okay. But I would have had to go back and sand it all back to the way it was on the front, and that was going to take a whole lot of extra time, and I am trying very hard to stop making extra work for myself and spending so many extra hours in the garage. And this is a perfect example of a time I could have taken the extra time and gone back and sanded it back, but it wasn't necessary, and I liked the choice to just paint it. The doors on the front are ready to put top coat on, but before I do that, I need to use my finishing pads to make it nice and smooth and ready for top coat. I'm using Minwax polyacrylic, and it's an ultra flat top coat. I like the ultra flat because it just doesn't show any lines. It just basically disappears, but it protects the wood. The hardware I'm using, I spray painted with two colors, a sunlit brass and a champagne mist over the top, and that will match the knob that I chose to put on the door. Once the top was dry after stripping, I still needed to do some serious sanding. So I started with an 80 grit, and then I put some mineral spirits on it to raise the grain, and then I went back with an 80 grit, then I went to a 120, then I went to a 220, and by the time I was finished, it was really nice and smooth, and then it was ready for stain. I thought about keeping the top a natural color, but then I kind of gave in, and I used an antique walnut from General Finishes, but I went back with some mineral spirits after I put the stain down and just lightened it up just a bit. Even though I used an antique walnut, I lightened it up, and I think I came pretty close to a natural color oak. When you're refinishing a piece of furniture, sometimes the drawers get forgotten, and it's really important to use something to condition the wood in the drawers, because that's where you put your stuff and you want them to be nice. So Big Mama's Butter is a nice smelling conditioner that will really make the drawers look so much nicer than they did. Two things that I usually put into a Drybar is something to hold wine glasses and something to hold wine bottles. So this is what I use to hold wine glasses. I got lucky on this one because this hutch had a shelf, and this shelf I can put really far up, and I can put the wine glass rack on there, and it saves me from trying to fit the wine glass rack on the inner upper side of the hutch. It just makes it much easier. These are those goofy gaps that were left from the hinges, and they were deliberately cut out for the hinges. Weird hinges. But I wanted to cover them with a trim. So I was going to have to measure it and cut the trim. So here I am measuring the trim where I want to put it. I want to put 2 on the front, 1 on the right and 1 on the left. And then I want to put 4 on the insides of the 2 cubbies on either side. Here are 2 pieces of the puzzle for the hinges that go on the door. Now, originally I thought that you put the metal piece in the door and then you add the hinge, but you actually screw the metal piece in to the hinge and then it slides in to the door, just like this. I'm not gonna lie, this was a challenge, trying to get these hinges to go into those dumb little holes and get it on straight. It took some doing and a little bit of swearing, but I got it. I got them in. Well, friends, we've come to the end of another week. We've come to the end of another project, and we have a finished piece to show for it. We started out with a hutch that sat in the kitchen of my sister-in-law, and now we have a Drybar. The biggest things I did really were just to take the doors off. I got really lucky because the insides of this hutch were finished, and I decided to go with that. Now, a lot of times I won't do that. I will change it because I need to change it, but I didn't feel the need this time. I like how it looks. I like how everything goes together. I chose a lighter wood for the top because I really like how the light wood looks with the darker color, especially with this Restoration Bronze Hack by Melange. I'm really proud of this. I'm so excited that I hit the nail on the head with this color. This is a matter of practice. If you practice mixing colors and you get to know what's in colors, you will start to learn how to mix colors as well. So don't give up, don't get frustrated. Just remember, start out small. Don't have big portions of paint that you're mixing with. Start out really small with just a dot like I did. And then once you feel like you have the ratios somewhat right, then you can add more. But you want to start out small. That's really the key. I'm really happy with the results. I came up against some really interesting challenges. I took off the doors. There were big holes, gaps that there was a metal piece in that attached to the metal hinge that was on the door. It was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. It just goes to show you that there are so many different kinds of furniture out there. So that means there must be many, many different ways to fix something and to change it. So don't get discouraged. Take on the challenge. You can do it. Good luck on your next project. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time.
You can do it.
If you had a glimpse inside my head, you'd know I'm different than you. What works for you might not work for me, 'cause that's our solid ground. I'll build a life that helps me thrive. I hope you're doing the same. Through my eyes I see different than you. Together we open new worlds. Different eyes lead to new heights, new views. Together we color the world. Discovering self to know how to grow. Genius takes many shades. Truth is we all need to open our minds. Normal.
Hey, thanks for watching my video. You can find more videos just like this on my YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe.